Welcome to 50-Minute Breakfast with PR, a quick and clear way to start your day with something real. Hi, I'm Sannie, your host. In this episode, we are talking about what public relation actually looks like in today's world, thinking about culture, strategy, and how people really connect. You will hear two very different voices with a lot of experience and some stories that might surprise you. Grab your favorite coffee and your bagel. Let's dive in. Hello, Mr. Agung. Thank you for coming today.
Hi, pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this podcast. So my name is Agung. I'm a senior partner and director of strategy and insights at Rice, a Fin Partners company. We are a communications consultancy based in Singapore, and we look after clients across the entire Asia-Pacific region.
Thank you, Mr. Agung. And please welcome our second guest today, Mr. Saad.
Thank you, Sannie, for hosting me and having me with you in your podcast. My name is Saad Alrubaiaan. I'm originally from Kuwait. I run a P Corp public relations and CSR agency in Dubai. I serve as the vice chairman of CIPR International, which is the international committee that overlooks the international practitioners around the world as part of the Chartered Institute of Public Relations activities and events around the world. I'm happy to be part of your podcast.
Once again, thank you both of you for joining me here today. So, our guest speaker background are different as their sector, like agency versus government, Asia versus Middle East and North Africa. But one thing they share is deep belief in the power of communication. Before we get into the future, we all wanted to understand where it all began. Mr. Agung, I would love to start with you. How did you first find your way into PR?
Sure. So I had actually started out in public relations through an internship. I was an intern at Ogilvy Public Relations based here in Singapore, and I was part of the consumer marketing team back then. It was a very eye-opening 6-month internship because it did give me the full exposure to a wide variety of clients across the consumer sector, from fast-moving consumer goods like cosmetics, all the way to luxury products and luxury brands and experiences. And it was a really intense experience as well, because throughout the 6-month internship, I actually had to get involved in everything from media monitoring to delivering media gifts, contacting the media, drafting press releases and media alerts. So it's the full suite of functions and activities across PR. As a student in university, I was also the editor of the campus newspaper. So I did have the opportunity to be on both sides of the fence, like on the journalistic side of things, but also on the PR side of things through the internship experience. And actually, right after that initial internship experience, I had thought to myself that PR was not for me. So, which is why the very first full-time job that I took up right after graduation wasn't in fact in PR. I decided to go into brand consultancy and branding.
Wow, that sounds like a full crash course in PR, to be fair. It doesn't get more hands-on than that. Honestly, it makes totally sense that you went into branding after that. Sometimes we need that shift to realize what we are really drawn to. What about you, Mr. Saad? You started out in a completely different space, the public sector. So what did PR look like when you first stepped into?
Back in 2006, almost 20 years ago, in Dubai. On that time, the most promising options was the in-house public relations department, specifically in the government sector. On that time, there was no unified, I would say, description of how the PR function should be. So it was kind of relied on the explanation of each organization. Some of them would give it some administrative work, like working on employees, residency and visa applications, or corporate travel plans, and making the bookings and these kind of admin work, which is now have moved completely to the HR or other functions. The most prominent activity on that time was the media relations. So the success factors will always rely on how you could write a great press release and how you could manage to distribute it and get the maximum possible of coverage. That's how the internally, and how most of the organizations assess the performance of their PR agencies.
Well, it's kind of eye-opening to hear how undefined PR was back then, especially inside the government sector. When you said it included things like booking travel or handling visas, that really shows how far the professional has become since then. Thank you. So, Agung, earlier you mentioned stepping away from PR after your internship, but eventually found your way back with a completely different lens. So what's changed during that time? What brought you back to the PR again?
And that was a very valuable experience, because in the 2 years that I spent in brand consultancy, I was a lot more involved in all aspects of consumer research, all aspects of landscape analysis, audience insights, mining and development. And that gave me a better perspective of the full communication spectrum. And right around this time was when an opportunity came knocking from Rice, which is the company that I've been at for the past 10 years. And there was an opportunity to return to PR, but this time in a slightly different form, right? Because it was more corporate communications. And at the same time, the nature of the work is also a lot more strategic. And so there is an opportunity to bring that strategic lens and a research-led mindset and viewpoint into the communications work. And so that's how I landed the role in Rice and returned to the world of PR. So I think, many of these things that I encountered early in my career are still very much the way things are in the industry today, in that there are all sorts of different forms and functions across the PR landscape. So we shouldn't think of PR as a profession that is very monolithic. It's not just one type of work. There are so many different variants even within this profession, right? Because you could be doing consumer PR, lifestyle and luxury PR, but you could also very well be doing corporate PR, financial PR, or providing strategic advisory on stakeholder relationships and planning and, that type of work. So there is something for everyone. And it's really that sort of variety that makes agency life in PR so exciting for me and rewarding.
That's such an insightful perspective. I think not many people say it out loud, but it's true. PR isn't just one thing. It can take so many forms depending on your strengths, your context, and even your curiosity, what you want at that moment. Thank you for that, Agung. That's such a powerful reminder for anyone who is still trying to figure out where they are in this field.
Yeah, I think the case of the EDI, the equity, diversity and inclusion. This is something, a topic that's been recently, within the past 4 or 5 years, emerging on the communication sector. I still believe that it's still complex. The case of the LGBT, it is something not acceptable within our region, from a legal perspective, I would say, even. But if you look at it from Western perspective, it is something welcomed and looked at it from a different lens. These are challenges, and we have to address them professionally, because there are lots of the context has a political aspect, social, demographic elements that need to be considered and addressed too. So whenever I work with international agency who's looking to work on a campaign within our region, I always raise similar issues. These are sensitive issues and most of the time could not be acceptable as it is in the Western media or campaigns. And vice versa, I would say. I'm sure there are topics that could be normal to be talked about in our daily life, but in our region. But if it was in a different context or international context, it could be perceived differently.
So far, we've talked about structure, strategy, and how PR has evolved. But there's one thing that cuts across all of that. It is culture. Saad, let's start with you. In the Gulf region, what happens when global messages miss the local context? That really highlights how cultural intelligence isn't about language, but it's about context, law, value, and know when to reframe the message entirely. Thank you. Yeah, also I would agree that in the global campaigns, that balance between relevance and respect can be really tricky. Okay, so back to Agung. You have worked on cross-border campaigns through Asia. How do you bring the local voice to global messaging, especially when you are representing the region on an international stage?
I think ensuring that alignment is still absolutely critical. You want to ensure that there is global alignment in terms of the narrative, in terms of the strategic direction, the business priorities, and so on. But at the same time, you want to also develop a narrative that resonates at the regional and even local level. You need to pay attention to the nuances of the region. You need to recognize and see the specific elements of the Asia Pacific region that are so rich and so compelling. The advice that I can share is to really build a very diverse base of experiences early on in your career and do that in a very intentional manner. So I'm not recommending that you jump from one job to the next. It's not about job hopping, right? That's not what I think makes sense. But it's more important to ensure that you learn as much as possible and from as diverse perspectives as possible, and go into different domains, go into different industries that you're interested in or curious about, and talk to people who are very different in their backgrounds, in their training, right? And absorb as much as possible. And wherever you are, wherever you have the opportunity to do tasks and assignments and campaigns that are very different and perhaps unexpected in some ways, dive right into it and take that opportunity and seize that opportunity, because it's only by doing that you actually learn what you like, what you dislike about it, what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and that would form the basis for how you move forward.
Well, thank you, Agung. Looks like I'm doing the right thing, especially for this podcast. I can got a chance to get to know for both of the experts in the field that I would never dream of that I got a chance to talk to. So trying, exploring, learning what works for you and try to use that to shape your next move. This would help you to thrive in your industry, especially in PR. Mr. Saad, let's hear from you. What would your advice be for some people starting out in PR today, especially in this diverse culture context?
We have the freelancing opportunities, which is available to students level as well. It will give a real life experience and entrepreneurial learning experience to them to understand how to get ready for the future and how the dynamics of the business and the role of the communication would be. It will give us how the market works and what is required, how the clients are perceiving the value of our work and the quality of our work. These kind of experiences, I think, will make us ready and more understanding of the demands of the market.
Well, thank you both, Mr. Agung and Mr. Saad, for such honest and grounded advice. It is clear that in PR today, it's not just about knowing the tools, it's about knowing yourself, staying curious, and being ready to adapt. Really appreciate your sharing your time and experience with us today.
Keep me posted. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions, or if there's any way that I can help. Just let me know. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me, and I wish you all the best.
This was 50-minute breakfast with PR, and if today's conversation made you pause, reflect, or just see PR a little differently, that's the win. Thanks for starting your morning with me. I'm Sannie, and I'll see you next time.